Greetings and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Run, and today we're playing as Azazel. Azazel is a short-range demon, and this run thankfully did him justice. Whenever you play as Azazel, you expect the run to go relatively easy. You usually pick Azazel because you want an easy run, because you know you're not gonna struggle too much, and what I really like about Azazel is that rhythmic filling. When you walk into the room with a charged brimstone, you kill everything in the room, you go to the next room, you charge it up again, and you kinda keep repeating that until eventually you win the game. So I would say he's my go-to character when I just want to relax and I just want to run that I know will be good. I think he's lacking a bit on the fun department because he doesn't maybe have too many synergies, but overall, you know, he's still a very decent fun character to play as, unless maybe you're suffering from some range issues, like in dailies maybe you're struggling against Harsh or maybe Boss Rush, but overall I wouldn't say that those things are too big of a problem. We started out pretty well in this run. Torn Photo is a great item on him. I think maybe the only downside outside his range is that you need to charge up that Brimstone, and just having a lower tier delay will seriously help with that. You can see that essentially every tier delay we pick up just has such a much more bigger effect just because we have a naturally high tier delay. What I'm trying to say is essentially if your tier delay is something like 6 or maybe even 7, if you pick up a tier's upgrade, it's not gonna be as big as if you had something like 30 tier delay. And you can see that just by 2 items you essentially got from 35 to 18, which is almost a 20 decrease, as opposed to if we had something like 10, this would only be in total like a 3 decrease. So our damage, or maybe our speed of which we can shoot at, is increased proportionally based on how much tier delay we had previously. So having some tiers upgrades at the start, especially as Azazel, is a good thing indeed, just because our damage is already naturally high. I think our damage is 5.25, something like that, but obviously combined with the fact that we deal multiple ticks of damage with Brimstone just makes it go through the roof, and we just really do deal insane amounts of damage. The other item that's maybe noteworthy here was Mr. Boom, and Mr. Boom is an active item that not a lot of people really appreciate, and I would say that is because it's just a bomb, it's just a big bomb, and using it is kinda tedious in the same way as maybe using the explosive barrel is. At least the TNT barrel, the explosive barrel, whatever it's called, is a one-room charge, but kind of placing it down requires some effort and then moving it around because it has a lot of weight behind it. And because Mr. Boom is a 2-room charge, I'd say it works well also as an offensive item, whereas maybe something like Explosive Barrel doesn't. But obviously, in this case, I use it just to find secret rooms. Having a 2-room charge means you can essentially do 1 room or maybe 1 big room, then get back and just kind of have free bombs which you can use to search for secret rooms as second secret rooms. And what's good about it, even if you don't find them, you can use the information you've gained knowing that there are no secret rooms there, and essentially that means you've relieved yourself of having to place 3 more bombs on adjacent walls. So that's all good and dandy, but obviously we can't really stick with Mr. Boom. While it's great, it does give us free bombs, we had to reroll him at some point, and we saw a reroll machine in the treasure room, and I would like to take a minute to actually talk about the reroll machines. So when a reroll machine's worth it, or maybe how often should you reroll? And obviously that depends on the run. On some runs you really don't want to reroll because maybe you don't have enough consumables, you don't have enough resources to even afford to do so, but on some runs maybe you want to go really deep about it and just keep rerolling until eventually it breaks. I did some math not too long ago, maybe like a month ago, about this, and in treasure rooms, if you want a specific, or maybe if you want to gun for a specific item, it's really hard to do that. Essentially, let's say that there are 200 items in the treasure room pool. I think there's even more, but let's say that you're gunning for like 10 particular items. On any roll, you're actually gonna have a geometric distribution, which means that if you want one particular item, it scales with just how many rolls you have. So if you have 150 rolls, because every time you see an item, it gets taken out of the pool, but then again, you know, some items are in the pool twice, which is not maybe that good, and there are some special items which makes things even rarer, but overall, let's say that if all of them had the same equal chance, and that if once you saw an item, it disappeared out of the pool, you would have about 50% if you rerolled it to 150 times. You note that in a regular case, you're not gonna get maybe more than 3 or 4 rerolls out of it, so going for one particular item is probably not the best strategy. So we need a strategy, kind of maybe a mathematical way, to determine at which point we should stop. What's great about Isaac is that we know all of the items in advance, so we know as we're rerolling which items are good and which are not. And there are some experiments, or maybe thought experiments, some math proofs. If you don't know what the next item would be, or maybe the power of the next item what would be, and in that case what the strategy is, you would reroll 33% of the items. Doesn't matter which ones they are, but essentially you would reroll the first 33% of these items. So let's say that you had 6 rerolls, you would just reroll it 2 times, and then after that, you know, when you roll the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 5th, and the 6th time, you would pick the item, the first item that is better than both of the first 2 items that you saw, and that should be the mathematically the best way to actually get the best item out of the bunch that you would have gotten by rerolling the items in the item machine. But like I said, in Isaac, we know what these items are, and maybe that's still a good strategy to some degree. Maybe you can incorporate it into your play, just rerolling a few items and then not really stopping until you eventually get the best item. And kind of subconsciously, we humans already do that. So let's say that if you roll 3 times, and the 4th item might not be the best item, but it might be the best out of the first 3 items, where we kind of tend to pick it up, just because in that sense, it's the best out of the ones we've seen so far. And that makes a lot of sense, but I'm saying that you shouldn't stop there. I say when you have a weak run, you really shouldn't never not reroll. I always gone for reroll. I just reroll as many times as possible. You saw me in this case, I just had a lot of bombs, and that's also true for an inverse. So if you have a strong run or a weak run, if you just want to keep rerolling until eventually the item breaks or you get a really, really run-defining item. And I know that might seem maybe a bit stretch, or maybe, like I said, that's just my strategy, so it might not be optimal at all. But I think just because we know what the powers of the items are, we can afford to reroll multiple times. So let's say that if I found something like Cricket's head, or maybe Cricket's body, I would say that in majority of cases you would pick those items up because they are run defining, they do change or maybe buff damage a lot, or maybe something like Judas' Shadow is also good, obviously Mom's Knife, Tech Hex, all of those items you would never reroll. But of course that's not the problem. The question is, do we reroll something like maybe a Tears upgrade? So let's say we get a coat hanger, which I'm not sure even if you can find it at Treasure Room, but let's say you can. If you find a coat hanger, would you pick it up? Well, I would say if you have a weak run, you shouldn't. And if you have a strong run, you also shouldn't. Let's say that you're somewhere in the middle, maybe your tier delay is something like 10, maybe you didn't get any tiers upgrades. In that case, I would say, maybe if you don't have enough bombs and, maybe the reroll machine is about to break, pick it up, because at this point it's probably the best you're gonna get. But if it's a weak run, or maybe if it's a really strong run, you shouldn't be satisfied with that. And you kind of need to look on beyond of that, because what's gonna happen if something else comes up? And on average case, you can expect items that will be slightly worse than that Tears upgrade. And by slightly worse, I mean maybe you're gonna get a familiar which deals some damage, which is also gonna be a DPS upgrade. In some cases it's gonna be really bad because you might get a very bad item, something like a spacebar item you can't use. In some cases it's gonna be really good and you're gonna get just a very good item. But in a majority of cases you're gonna get an average item, which is probably not gonna be much worse than the item you just about rerolled. And if you get a bad item and maybe you can't pick it up, your run didn't change, you didn't affect it negatively. And maybe that's the wrong way of looking of it, but so far that's kind of how I've been doing it, and I've had decent success with it. And in this daily in particular, if you saw me reroll, of course we had the Mr. Boom, which is just kind of a great candidate to reroll, because even if you get an active item, a better active item than Mr. Boom, we can plop it back down and then we can keep rerolling. So in that situation, you really are gunning for a better spacebar item, which you can then kind of reroll onwards. So when I saw Golden Teleporter, that was like the perfect chance. I dropped Golden Teleporter, I picked it up and dropped the Mr. Boom on the pedestal, and then you just keep rolling until eventually I get a much more decent item. And that did happen. I think I got Mom's Contact in that case, maybe it was in the other treasure room, but nevertheless I did get an item which was worth my time. And of course this is kind of helped by the fact that I had like 20 bombs at that point, also some coins which I could have used to use the reroll machine. But maybe this is just a strategy talk, maybe I don't really know what I'm talking about, but I'm just kind of trying to explain my reasoning as to why I did that. So maybe if someone saw it and you're like, this guy is cheating, because why wouldn't he pick up item X, he could keep re-rolling for item B. And again, I don't have like a set algorithm in my head. I won't always keep re-rolling, sometimes I'll stop, and that just depends maybe on the circumstances of the run. I think that's mostly due to experience and with how maybe the brain adapts with the patterns we've seen before in Isaac, with which things we've seen, and maybe we know which items we get when we reroll things. So I can't really explain it that well, but I did my best, or tried my best to explain what my strategy is when I'm actually gunning for those reroll machines. But you can see besides that, this run is just stellar, We have the 3 Guppy items we transfer into Guppy. We have Chocolate Milk, which works really well with at least Little Brimstone, because what it does with Little Brimstone, I mean the Azazel Brimstone, not the familiar Little Brimstone, because all it does is reduces your tier delay by a very marginal amount. You can see we're at 16 now, and before when we had the blue aura, we were actually at 1, so we were able to shoot instantly. So we didn't even have to charge for 1 frame, and we would be able to shoot our Brimstone out. And when we have obviously Guppy transformation, we can even have more flies to go with it, and then we just deal a ton of damage that way. And combined with the Holy Mantle and just a bunch of other nice stat upgrades, we're not really in any danger of getting hit. What was kind of lucky in this run, obviously a lot of things, but maybe the luckiest of them all was that I blew up a beggar at the end of the run, a coin beggar I think it was, and he gave me a Forget-Me-Now, and a Forget-Me-Now is such a good get, especially on the Dark Room, because up until this point we had the Golden Teleporter, we were able to use it, went to all the secret rooms, second secret rooms, the I Am Error rooms, which was just a bunch of points, and thankfully at the last point where we could have gotten it, then we visited all the secret rooms and second secret rooms on the Dark Room floor, and then we use the Forget-Me-Now after beating Mega Satan to kind of do everything over again. And of course, by doing everything over again, we get more exploration bonus, because we get to visit or do the Dark Room again. We can visit yet another secret room, a second secret room. Sadly, you know, we can't really visit the I Am Error, error, sounds like a dog barking, I Am Error room, because in dailies you can't go past the initial objective, so if you could go to the I Am Error room, in this case we couldn't really do it again, if that makes sense. Like, you could previously, that was patched out, like, even in Afterbirth, so maybe everyone knows it already, but you can't really go to the I Am Error room on the last stage of the daily of whatever you're doing. So in case of Mega Satan, we can't do yet another floor of Dark Room if you go to the I Am Error room, because we can't go to the I Am room. That's, I guess, what I'm trying to say. But you can see that all in all it worked really well. We did the whole floor again, we got a bunch of extra points for it, and you can see that our exploration bonus is 22,000, which is probably the highest I've had out of every run, because obviously this run went from the start to finish. We had the Golden Teleporter, and we were able to do the longest floor twice. Everything else was kind of decent. Stage bonus is obviously great. Shrek bonus wasn't that high, could have been higher. I didn't really find a breaking strategy, although I'm sure there is on any run that goes to Mega Satan. There is a breaking strategy, you just kind of have to look for it. And the rest we managed to do Boss Rush and Hush, and we did finish in a very comfortable 47th spot with 53,000 points. It could have been higher, it's a Mega Satan daily, but I think every time you break that 50,000 point barrier, you can be satisfied with your run regardless of what it is. On Mega Satan, 50,000 is maybe like the benchmark of a good run, so having 3,000 points more is kind of an indication that this was a really good run. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys, and I hope to see you next time.